Good afternoon. I'm Rick Kern, and today we'll be interviewing Vlad and Tyler about the subject of virtualization. How is everyone today?
I'm well, Rick. Thanks for asking.
I'm fine, thanks. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great, and I am very excited about our topic today. So let's get started. Can you tell me what virtualization is?
I'll start, Tyler, if you don't mind. Virtualization is the act of making virtual versions of computing appliances, whether that is a virtual desktop infrastructure, or more commonly known as a VDI, a virtual storage area network. We can call those vSANs, or many other examples.
Virtual versions, huh? So how exactly does that work?
I can take the lead on that one, Vlad. This is a great question. Take, for instance, VDIs. As personal computing started to become commonplace, homes and businesses alike began to have computers at their desks. Although these systems could do things that just years earlier would have never been possible, they became cumbersome and expensive. Enter VDIs. Instead of having a 20-pound box of electronics at every desk, businesses decided that it would be much more useful and cost-effective to buy a large, powerful server and distribute its resources among all of its employees.
That's interesting. But didn't you say that desktop computers were cumbersome? Wouldn't a server rack in the middle of an office be just as cumbersome, if not more?
Well, that's another great thing about virtualization, and in this specific instance, VDIs, the security aspect. As computer professionals, we can put our servers in a controlled area and run cabling to our systems.
That way we can protect our valuable assets and still provide resources to the people that need them, all while making efficient use of space.
Wow, that is really cool. So who is using this technology? Would I have to be a part of some cutting-edge tech startup to see this kind of thing?
No, Rick, you wouldn't need to be in some fancy technology company to see this type of environment. In fact, because virtualization ends up being cheaper than its all-hardware counterpart, it is extremely accessible for any type of business. Virtualization is being used for the most part in business settings, since it's not really optimal in a home network environment. One market, however, that is really beginning to see a lot of usage for virtualization is in hospitals, because doctors and nurses, they need to fill out paperwork for their patients constantly to make sure that they're getting the best care possible. And by using a VDI environment, the hospital can cut costs on its technical budget and allow the money to be spent somewhere else.
It does seem like a hospital would be a great use case for virtualization technology. But how did virtualization become what it is today?
Virtualization actually first came out in 1960, and those were the days of huge mainframe computers where computing systems could only accomplish one task at a time.
The idea of virtualization was supposed to allow for copies of the mainframe, which could then be used to accomplish several tasks at once. This is what led to time sharing on mainframes. Fast forward to 2003, when VMware, a prominent name in virtualization, was bought for $635 million. Through the course of the timeline, virtualization went from something to help multitask to something that companies valued at close to $1 billion. And it's being implemented in hospitals to military operations to everything in between. It's quite the story.
Well, I think it's safe to say that as time goes by, virtualization technology will become a much more common way of computing. Can you just imagine a world where instead of having massive server rooms with a server for each process, we had one server that contained multiple copies of itself, with each copy performing a different task? Or a server that had requisite software to mimic multiple switches so that you don't have to have huge switches all over the place in your work center.
I would say. So now that we know where virtualization technology has been, where do you think it's going?
These things that Vlad are explaining are already taking place, but I think when people realize the benefits, whether it's the cost savings, efficient space use, or the security benefits, more and more businesses will begin using virtualization.
That's fascinating. Thank you both so much for coming and talking to me about this today, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again real soon.
Thank you, and it was most definitely our pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Rick. We'd be happy to come back and talk again.